A Christmas Carol, published by Prof. LLC. A Christmas Carol, written by Charles Dickens in 1843. This edition is adapted into clear, modern English, choosing content over play of words, designed for language learners and casual listeners who want to enjoy the story without grueling language barriers.
Chapter 1, Marley's Ghost. To start with, Jacob Marley was dead. There was absolutely no doubt about that. The register of his burial was signed by the priest, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Ebenezer Scrooge signed it too, and Scrooge's signature was highly respected on the stock exchange. Anything he put his name to was as good as gold. There was no question, old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind you, I do not mean to say that I know, from my own experience, what is so particularly dead about a doornail. Personally, I might have thought a coffin nail was the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the comparison, and my hands shall not disturb it, or our country would be ruined. So, you must allow me to repeat, very clearly, that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Did Scrooge know he was dead? Of course he did. How could he not? Scrooge and Marley had been partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his only executor, his only administrator, his only heir, his only friend, and his only mourner. Yet even Scrooge was not so terribly upset by the sad event. He remained an excellent businessman on the very day of the funeral, and he marked the occasion by making a highly profitable deal. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to where I started. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be clearly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am about to tell. If we were not completely convinced that Hamlet's father had died before the play began, there would be nothing remarkable about him walking at night on the castle walls. It would be no different than any other middle-aged man going out in a cold breeze after dark just to surprise his son. Scrooge never painted over old Marley's name on the sign. There it stood, years later, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The business was known by that name. Sometimes people new to the trade called Scrooge.
Scrooge.
And sometimes they called him
Marley.
But he answered to both. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted man at the grindstone, that Scrooge. He was a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, greedy old sinner. He was as hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck a generous spark. He was secretive, self-contained, and as solitary as an oyster. The coldness inside him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his walk, made his eyes red, turned his thin lips blue, and spoke out sharply in his grating voice. A frosty frost lay on his head, his eyebrows, and his wire-like chin. He carried his own low temperature with him everywhere. He iced his office during the hot summer days, and he did not thaw it even 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had very little effect on Scrooge. No warmth could warm him, and no winter weather could chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he, no falling snow was more stubborn, no heavy rain was less open to pity. Bad weather did not know how to affect him. The heaviest rain, snow, hail, and sleet could only claim an advantage over him in one way: they often
came down
handsomely, giving freely to the earth, but Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with a happy look,
"My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?"
No beggars asked him for a penny, no children asked him what time it was, and no man or woman in all his life ever asked him for directions. Even the dogs of blind men seemed to know him. When they saw him coming, they would pull their owners into doorways and side alleys, wagging their tails as if to say,
"No eyes at all are better than an evil eye, dark master."
But what did Scrooge care? That was exactly what he liked. To force his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was his favorite thing. Once upon a time, on Christmas Eve, of all the good days in the year, old Scrooge sat busy in his office. It was cold, bleak, biting weather. It was foggy too, and he could hear the people in the courtyard outside wheezing as they walked, beating their hands against their chests and stamping their feet on the pavement to keep warm. The city clocks had just struck 3. but it was already quite dark. It had not been light all day, and candles were burning in the windows of neighboring offices like red smudges on the thick brown air. The fog poured in through every crack and keyhole. It was so dense outside that even though the courtyard was very narrow, the houses opposite looked like mere ghosts. Seeing the dirty grey cloud drop down, hiding everything, one might have thought that nature itself lived nearby and was brewing a giant storm. The door of Scrooge's office was open so that he could keep an eye on his clerk, who was copying letters in a small, dark cell nearby, a sort of tank. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so much smaller that it looked like a single glowing coal. But the clerk could not add more coal, because Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. If the clerk ever came in with the coal shovel, the master would warn him that they would have to part ways. So the clerk put on his white woolen scarf and tried to warm himself at the candle flame, but since he was not a man of strong imagination, he failed.
"A Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you,"
cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew. He had walked so fast through the fog and frost that he had arrived before Scrooge even heard him coming.
Bah!
Said Scrooge.
Humbug!
This nephew was so warm from his brisk walk that he was glowing. His face was red and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked in the frosty air.
"Christmas a humbug, Uncle.
Said the nephew.
You don't mean that, I'm sure."
I do.
Said Scrooge.
Merry Christmas. What right do you have to be merry? What reason do you have to be happy? You're poor enough.
"Come, then.
Replied the nephew gaily.
What right do you have to be miserable? What reason do you have to be angry? You're rich enough."
Scrooge, having no better answer ready, said
Bah!
again and followed it up with,
Humbug!
"Don't be cross, Uncle."
said the nephew.
What else can I be?
Returned the uncle.
When I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. Out with Merry Christmas. What is Christmas to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older, but not an hour richer? A time for balancing your books and finding every item against you after 12 months? If I had my way,
Scrooge said angrily,
every idiot who goes around with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own Christmas pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
"Uncle."
pleaded the nephew.
Nephew,
Returned the uncle sternly.
keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine.
"Keep it."
Repeated Scrooge's nephew.
"But you don't keep it."
Let me leave it alone then.
Said Scrooge.
Much good may it do you. Much good it has ever done you.
"There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say."
Returned the nephew.
"Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it comes around, as a good time. It is a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. It is the only time I know of, in the long calendar of the year, when men and women seem to open their closed hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow travelers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say, God bless it."
The clerk in his little cell automatically clapped his hands. Realizing immediately how inappropriate this was, he poked the fire and accidentally extinguished the last tiny spark forever.
"Let me hear another sound from you."
Said Scrooge.
"And you will keep your Christmas by losing your job. You are quite a powerful speaker, sir."
He added, turning to his nephew.
I wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, Uncle. Come. Dine with us tomorrow.
Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He used the full expression, saying he would see him in hell first.
But why?
Cried Scrooge's nephew.
Why?
Why did you get married?
Asked Scrooge.
Because I fell in love. Because you fell in love.
Growled Scrooge, as if that were the only thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon. But Uncle, you never came to see me before that happened. Why use that as an excuse for not coming now? Good afternoon.
Said Scrooge.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends? Good afternoon.
Said Scrooge.
I am sorry, with all my heart, to find you so stubborn. We have never had any argument. But I have made this effort in honor of Christmas, and I will keep my Christmas spirit to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
Said Scrooge.
And a Happy New Year. Good afternoon.
Said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without an angry word. He stopped at the outer door to wish the greetings of the season to the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially.
There's another one,
muttered Scrooge, who overheard them.
My clerk, earning only 15 shillings a week, with a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to an asylum.
This clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to look at, and they now stood in Scrooge's office with their hats off. They held books and papers in their hands, and they bowed to him.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe,
said one of the gentlemen, looking at his list.
Do I have the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge, or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years.
Scrooge replied.
He died 7 years ago, this very night.
We have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner,
said the gentleman, presenting his papers. It certainly was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits, at the word
generosity.
Scrooge frowned, shook his head, and handed the papers back.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge,
said the gentleman, taking up a pen.
It is more than usually desirable that we should make some small provision for the poor and needy, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands lack basic necessities, hundreds of thousands lack simple comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons?
Asked Scrooge.
Plenty of prisons,
said the gentleman, laying down the pen.
And the workhouses?
Demanded Scrooge.
Are they still in operation?
They are. Still.
Returned the gentleman.
I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill and the poor law are in full effect, then?
Said Scrooge.
Both are very busy, sir. Oh! I was afraid, from what you said at first, that something had happened to stop them in their useful work.
Said Scrooge.
I am very glad to hear it.
Under the belief that these places do not provide much Christian comfort of mind or body to the poor,
returned the gentleman.
A few of us are trying to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat, drink, and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time, above all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I write you down for?
Nothing.
Scrooge replied.
You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone.
said Scrooge.
Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I do not make merry myself at Christmas, and I cannot afford to make lazy people merry. I help to support the institutions I mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many cannot go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die,
said Scrooge,
they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that.
But you might know it,
observed the gentleman.
It is not my business.
Scrooge returned.
It is enough for a man to understand his own business, and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Seeing clearly that it was useless to argue, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his work, feeling highly pleased with himself and in a more cheerful mood than was usual for him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened. People ran about with torches, offering to walk before horses and carriages to guide them. The old church tower, whose ancient bell always looked down at Scrooge from its Gothic window, became invisible in the clouds. It struck the hours and quarters with shaky vibrations, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head. The cold became intense. In the main street, some workers repairing the gas pipes had lit a great fire in a brazier. A crowd of ragged men and boys stood around it, warming their hands and eyes in delight. The water pipe, left alone, froze solid. The bright shops, decorated with holly and berries, made the pale faces of passers-by look colorful. The Lord Mayor in his mansion ordered his 50 cooks and butler to keep Christmas as it should be kept. Even the little tailor, who had been fined on Monday for being drunk, was stirring his Christmas pudding, while his lean wife and baby went out to buy the beef. It grew foggier and colder, a piercing, biting cold. A young boy, whose nose was gnawed by the hungry cold, stopped at Scrooge's keyhole to sing a Christmas carol.
God bless you, merry gentlemen. May nothing you dismay.
At the very first sound, Scrooge seized his ruler with such energy that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and frost. At last, it was time to close the office. Scrooge got down from his stool with a grunt. This was a silent signal to the clerk, who instantly blew out his candle and put on his hat.
You will want the whole day tomorrow, I suppose?
Said Scrooge.
If it's convenient, sir. It is not convenient.
Said Scrooge.
And it is not fair. If I were to dock your pay for it, you would think yourself badly treated, wouldn't you?
The clerk smiled faintly.
And yet?
Said Scrooge.
You don't think I am badly treated when I pay a day's wages for no work?
The clerk pointed out that it was only once a year.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December.
Said Scrooge, buttoning his coat to his chin.
But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier the next morning.
The clerk promised he would. Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a second. The clerk, with his long white scarf dangling below his waist, for he had no warm overcoat, went down a slide on the ice 20 times in honor of Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as fast as he could to play games with his family. Scrooge ate his lonely dinner in his usual gloomy tavern. After reading all the newspapers and spending the rest of the evening looking at his bank book, he went home to bed. He lived in rooms that had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a dark building located in a narrow yard. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew every stone, had to grope with his hands. The fog and frost hung around the old gateway so thickly that it seemed as if the spirit of winter was sitting there in deep sadness. Now there was nothing unusual about the door knocker, except that it was very large. Scrooge had seen it every night and morning during his residence there. Also, Scrooge had very little imagination. Let it also be remembered that Scrooge had not thought about Marley once since mentioning him that afternoon. Then, let anyone explain how it happened that Scrooge, putting his key in the lock, saw in the knocker, without any change taking place, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not in deep shadow like the other objects, but had a ghostly light around it, like a bad lobster glowing in a dark cellar. It was not angry, but looked at Scrooge just as Marley used to look, with his ghostly spectacles pushed up on his forehead. The hair was moving slightly, as if by warm air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were completely still. That, and its pale color, made it horrible. As Scrooge stared at it, the face turned back into a door knocker. To say he was not startled would be untrue, but he put his hand on the key, turned it firmly, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did pause before shutting the door, and he looked behind it, half expecting to see Marley's hair sticking out. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws that held the knocker. He said,
"Pooh, pooh,"
and closed it with a bang. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. Every room above and every cellar below seemed to have its own echo. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He locked the door and walked up the stairs, slowly, trimming his candle. You could have driven a hearse up those stairs easily. There was plenty of width. Perhaps that is why Scrooge thought he saw a ghostly hearse moving up before him in the darkness. He did not care. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Before shutting his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. Sitting room, bedroom, storage room, all were as they should be. Nobody was under the table or the sofa. A small fire was in the grate, his spoon and bowl were ready, and his saucepan of gruel was on the stove. Nobody was under the bed or in the closet. Satisfied, he closed the door and locked himself in, double-locked himself in, which was not his habit. He took off his tie, put on his dressing gown, slippers, and nightcap, and sat down before the fire to eat his gruel. It was a very small fire for such a bitter night. The fireplace was old, decorated with quaint Dutch tiles showing Bible scenes, Cain and Abel, Pharaoh's daughter, the Queen of Sheba, and apostles. Yet Marley's face appeared on every single tile, swallowing up everything else.
"Humbug,"
said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After walking a few times, he sat down again. As he leaned his head back, his eyes fell upon a disused bell hanging in the room. To his great surprise and terror, the bell began to swing. It swung softly at first, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This lasted for about a minute. Then the bells stopped together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise from deep below, as if someone were dragging a heavy chain over the wine casks in the cellar. Scrooge remembered that ghosts were said to drag chains. The cellar door flew open with a boom, and the noise came louder up the stairs, straight toward his door.
"It's humbug.
Said Scrooge.
I won't believe it."
His face grew pale, though, when the ghost came right through the heavy door and entered the room before his eyes. The dying flame in the fireplace leaped up as if to cry,
"I know him. Marley's ghost."
and then fell back. It was the same face, the very same, Marley with his hair in a ponytail, his usual vest, trousers, and boots. A long chain was wound around his waist like a tail. It was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, account books, deeds, and heavy steel purses. His body was transparent. Scrooge could see the 2 buttons on the back of his coat right through his vest. Scrooge did not want to believe his eyes. He felt the coldness of the ghost's eyes, but he still fought his senses.
"What do you want with me?"
Said Scrooge, cold as ever.
"Much,"
Said the ghost. There was no doubt it was Marley's voice.
"Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?"
Asked Scrooge.
"In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "Can you sit down?"
Asked Scrooge.
"I can." "Do it then."
The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace.
"You don't believe in me,"
said the ghost.
I don't.
Said Scrooge.
Why do you doubt your senses? Because a little thing affects them.
Said Scrooge.
A bad stomach makes them liars. You might be an undigested piece of beef, a bit of mustard, a crumb of cheese, or a piece of undercooked potato. There is more gravy than grave about you, whatever you are.
Scrooge cracked this joke to keep down his terror, for the ghost's voice shook him to the bone. To sit staring at those silent, dead eyes was terrifying. Also, the ghost seemed to exist in a hot, baking atmosphere of its own, like an oven, though Scrooge could not feel the heat.
You see this toothpick?
Said Scrooge, trying to distract the ghost's gaze.
I do.
Said the ghost.
You're not looking at it.
But I see it anyway.
Said the ghost.
Well,
Said Scrooge.
I only have to swallow this, and I will be haunted by monsters of my own creation for the rest of my days. Humbug, I tell you.
At this, the spirit let out a terrible cry and shook its chain with such a frightening noise that Scrooge held onto his chair to keep from fainting. But he was even more horrified when the ghost took off the bandage around its head, and its lower jaw dropped down onto its chest. Scrooge fell to his knees, covering his face.
Mercy!
He cried.
Why do you trouble me?
Do you believe in me or not?
Asked the ghost.
I do.
Said Scrooge.
I must. But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every person
The ghost returned.
that the spirit within them should walk among their fellow humans and travel far and wide. If that spirit does not go out in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It must wander the world, oh, woe is me, and watch the happiness it can no longer share.
Again the ghost cried out and shook its chain.
You are chained.
Said Scrooge, trembling.
Tell me why.
I wear the chain I made in life.
Replied the ghost.
I made it link by link, yard by yard, of my own free will. Is its pattern strange to you?
Scrooge trembled more and more.
Or would you know?
Said the ghost.
The weight and length of the chain you carry yourself. It was just as heavy and long as this 7 years ago. You have worked on it since. It is a massive chain.
Scrooge looked around on the floor, expecting to see a long iron chain, but saw nothing.
Jacob.
He begged.
Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have no comfort to give.
The ghost replied.
That comes from other places, Ebenezer Scrooge, and is brought by other messengers. I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never traveled beyond our office in life. My mind never went beyond our money-changing hole. Now, long and weary journeys lie before me.
Scrooge put his hands in his pockets, thinking.
You must have been very slow about it, Jacob.
He said in a businesslike but humble voice.
Slow.
Repeated the ghost.
7 years dead.
Mused Scrooge.
And traveling all the time?
The whole time.
Said the ghost.
No rest, no peace. Only constant regret.
Do you travel fast?
On the wings of the wind.
Replied the ghost.
You must have covered a lot of ground in 7 years.
Said Scrooge. The ghost let out another cry and clanked its chains so loudly that it would have woken the neighborhood.
Oh. Captive in chains.
cried the ghost.
Not to know that a lifetime of good work is too short to do all the good on this earth. Not to know that no regret can make up for a lost opportunity in life. Yet that was me. Oh, that was me.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob,
said Scrooge, beginning to worry about himself.
Business,
cried the ghost, wringing its hands.
mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, patience, and kindness were all my business. My trade was just a drop of water in the ocean of my true business.
It held up its chain, then threw it heavily onto the floor.
At this time of year, I suffer most.
The ghost said.
Why did I walk through crowds of people with my eyes down, never looking up to the star that led the wise men to the poor stable? Were there no poor homes to which its light could have guided me?
Scrooge was terrified to hear the ghost speak this way.
Hear me,
cried the ghost.
my time is almost up.
I will,
said Scrooge.
but don't be hard on me, Jacob. How I appear to you in a shape you can see, I cannot tell. I have sat invisible beside you for many days.
Scrooge shivered and wiped sweat from his forehead.
That is a painful part of my punishment.
Said the ghost.
I am here tonight to warn you that you still have a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance I have obtained for you, Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend.
Said Scrooge.
Thank you.
You will be visited.
Said the ghost.
By 3 spirits.
Scrooge's face fell.
Is that the chance you mentioned, Jacob?
He asked in a shaking voice.
It is. I think I'd rather not.
Said Scrooge.
Without their visits,
Said the ghost.
you cannot hope to escape the path I travel. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and get it over with, Jacob?
Suggested Scrooge.
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third on the following night when the last stroke of 12 has stopped vibrating. You will see me no more. Remember what has passed between us, for your own sake.
Saying this, the ghost wrapped the bandage around its head again. Scrooge knew this because he heard the ghost's teeth snap together when the bandage pulled the jaw up. Scrooge looked up and saw the ghost holding its chain over its arm. The ghost began to walk backward, and with every step, the window opened a little more. When the ghost reached the window, it was wide open. It signaled Scrooge to approach. Scrooge did so. When they were close, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to stop. Scrooge did. He heard confused noises in the air, sounds of crying, regret, and deep sadness. The ghost joined in the sad songs and floated out into the dark, cold night. Scrooge looked out the window. The air was filled with ghosts, all wearing chains like Marley's. Many were people Scrooge had known in life. They were all crying because they wanted to help people on earth, but had lost the power to do so forever. The ghosts faded into the mist, and the night became quiet again. Scrooge closed the window and checked the door. It was still double-locked. He tried to say,
Humbug.
but stopped after the first sound. Feeling exhausted from the terror, the long day, and the ghost's visit, he went straight to bed without even undressing and fell asleep instantly.
This has been A Christmas Carol, published by TPROF LLC. Production copyright 2026 by TPROF LLC. Thank you for listening.